Welcome everybody. Now we're going to open up a pattern that I have sent to the PDF printer, and I'm just going to view it here in Adobe Acrobat. And now let's take a look at this pattern. And can you see what's wrong with this pattern? It's a bib pattern, and as you can see, there's a fold here. And what I've done, incorrectly of course, is I've added a seam to the fold. And as you know, you can't do that. So, and what I did was I actually emailed this pattern out. So, what do when you've when you made an error with your design, and you've already sent it to your client, and you email it out with Designer? Well, you send them another pattern. You make the corrections, and I'll show you exactly how to do that in this tutorial. So, let's take a look at what we can do now to fix up this pattern and get it right. And what I did was I actually put a seam on the fold. So what you can do now is you can actually send out an email to your client or customer and say, whoops, actually let's do that. You can grab any text that's in here and you can say, oops, fixed it, like so. Seams on the fold, which of course everybody knows that you don't put a seam on the fold because the fold is not a seam. And if somebody did get this, they would assume that you wanted to cut two pieces and then they would stitch it in the center here, which of course is not what we want. That's not part of the spec for our particular textile product here. So we're going to say, whoops, we did a seam on the fold, and whoops, we fixed it. And then we're doing this right in the PDF plotter. So now we're going to send it to the email. I just type that in here. And you can send this to your own address and then take a look at it first, or just send it straight from the software. So once I've typed in the email address, I'll just hit send the PDF so that we can take a look at it in this video, which we'll do. And it takes about 3 seconds, and off goes the email, and that should be in our inbox. So let's go take a look at that now. So now we're in the Dollware Designer. To all the Dollware Designer users out there who have been working in Dollware Designer, some people for over 10 years now. I don't know how many of you remember Dollware 1.2. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to go in and we're going to do some pattern drafting here. I'll just center the software here for you. And we're just going to go in here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a look at this bib pattern that we've been playing with here. And as you can see, this is the one where I finished the seam. And actually what I want to do now though is we're going to put that seam back, or I'll show you how to add a seam and then we'll take it away. And it's good practice for our seam work anyways. The first thing you want to do when you're working on a seam like this is be the second polygon shaper in this drawing. And the way we select from our polygon shapers is in this little cell grid here, and we just select the second one. And as you can see, the points are all highlighted, and then all the points and the arcs are loaded in here in our control points list box. So now what we're going to do is we're going to click around here until we get to this seam point, and we're going to read off the data here, and it says that the outs width of this particular seam is 0.1, and that means of course there's no seam there, which is exactly what we want for a fold. And we'll just drag that over a little bit, put it closer to the line. Maybe that's why I missed it, because I should have had my detail closer to the line. Anyway, so what we can do is we can just set the out to 13, because we've got that set in our seam width here in our measurement panel, and we'll just go to the next and we'll set the in to 13 as well. And then we'll just reload that seam, and as you can see, there it is. It's there's now a seam. Of course, it's seam type 3, and the notation for the seam type is usually by the number of points. Like if you look at this, if you count the points, like here, this is a 1-point seam. So you just go around here, you go 1, and that's all the points. But if we go here, we got 1, 2, 3 points, so that's why it's a 3-point. And the 4-point actually is the when you do a dart. And the way that you do that is you just you set the first point, and then the dart will go in a V and come back out. And then what you do is you set it to the first point and the second point, and what it does is it goes around to create the dart mathematically for you, which is very convenient when you're setting up darted blocks. So let's take a look at what a 2-point corner is, and you might use that quite a bit in quilting. Well, actually, let's we'll put that one back. And what we want to do is we want to go to that point, which is here, and you want to set it to the 2-point type 2 seam corner, and then we'll click to the next one because that's how it saves it, and then we'll reload that seam. And you see now we have this nice fillet here. And the other thing you can do, and this is one thing I want to point out here, is that there's the deflection angle. And what I think this one is just set for 90. And you can change that, and that will actually change how that seam performs. And you may want to do that with some of your quilt patterns, or depending on what kind of pattern you're working for, you may actually need it. So by changing the angles here, like if I just change these to 135, but let's just do one at say 70 and the other one 135, and I don't really know how that's going to turn out, but you just want to click back one and then just reload it, and let's see what we get. Okay, well we get it. We're not showing any angle, so let's try loading that up again here, and it's a type 2, which is what we want. Let's try setting this to 70. And by playing with this, it's a good way. So you see now it's loading 70, and let's just see what that looks like. So as you can see, oh yeah, it's a little bit wider, a little bit more expansive. So I guess we could even go less. Let's see what it looks like if we do, 35. This may not work out. It might, lines might shoot all over the place. We'll see what happens because it's calculating it mathematically, and it may not actually be able to produce a 35-degree angle. It might not mathematically. Well, see, it did it, but as you can see, it kind of cut the corner off here. So, 35 degrees is kind of stretching it a little bit, but maybe not. We might be able to get more angle out of there, and we might be able to cut it right off, depending on what we're trying to do here. But you see, you can, by setting the deflection angle, so we could actually go back here, and they don't have to be parallel. Like you could do one at 35, and then let's set this one back to let's say 65. And we'll go back one, then we'll reload that. And so you see you got two slightly different angles there. Yeah, let's see if we can make it even more exaggerated so you can see it. So let's make this one 25, and we'll make this one 90. See what happens there. So this is just doing like some pattern lab work to sort of see how your pattern seams will turn out, how it'll calculate the seams for you, and what the different tools will do. The 0 one, of course, is when you want to skip a point. So if you didn't want to have a point here, which actually means in some places where you have like extra points in a straight line, you may not want to bother with any seams, so you'll just hit 0, and then the calculator that calculates the seam will just skip over those points and draw a straight line from the subsequent points. So that's a little bit of background on this one. So what I've done is I've set the seam here, or showed you how to do it, which is the correction we made for this pattern piece, which of course this isn't the final version. We can just reload that. This is a good way to experiment with your seams, and if you don't worry about making a mess of it, because you can just start all over again and reset your seam. So it's nothing to really be worried about, and it's a good way for you to seam your patterns very quickly when you digitize them. And that's one of the great things about the seam tool, because you can actually just trace out patterns, like say from clothing, right off the pattern piece, and then quite often the seam is hidden in the garment, as you know. So you can actually just add the seam, and that gives you a good replica of that particular garment that you are digitizing. So let's well, go ahead and try that in your designer, And we'll carry on with how to email this pattern piece to our customer or client or family member, or even to ourselves to go into the sewing room and make it. So try that with your designer. So now let's take a look at how our pattern addendum is going to look to our client here when they receive it. And we open it up, and I'll drag that over here for you to take a look at. And let's just zoom that down a bit so you can see. So here's our pattern, and what I've done is you can see the text here. Whoops, I fixed it. And there's our addendum. One of the things you can do, like if you want to have extra text here for making notes, in the Digitizer you can just create a text field with just a star in it or something that you can use for creating notes later. Or you can just add them in the Digitizer if you want to do that as well to your pattern blocks that you're creating. So there's another fun tutorial for you to try. Thanks, and bye for now.